Hello, I'm Jim Simon. I'm a SAS instructor based in Irvine, California. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to get you started in SAS Visual Analytics. In less than an hour, you're going to be up and running with SAS Visual Analytics software. I'm going to show you how fun it is to use, how easy it is to use, how intuitive it is to use. I started as a SAS instructor in 1988. Prior to that, I was a SAS programmer, and prior to that, I was a college instructor. So I've been doing this as a SAS instructor for the last 32 plus years, and I love introducing people to SAS. So let's get started with SAS Visual Analytics. So that's what you see here. You see SAS Visual Analytics. You see a blank screen. Let me get up my pointer here, so you can see kind of where I'm pointing around. There we go. Okay. So we have here a blank canvas, and on the left side, we have a data button to see our data source. So let me click that data button. Later, we'll look at the objects button, but for now, let's look at data. What's our data source here? It's the cars data. We have 425 cars for sale listed here. And if we look at our data items, we can see they're divided into category data items and measure data items. So the categories include cylinders, drivetrain, make, model, origin, and type. And to the right of each one, you see the number of unique values. Like there are 6 different types. And what are those types? Well, we're going to find out very soon. There's 3 values of origin. What are they? We're going to find out soon. There are 425 models for sale within 38 makes. We're going to look at all of these as we go along, but for now, let's look down at measure. Measures include engine size, horsepower, invoice price, length in inches, miles per gallon, MSRP, and weight. Okay, so the measures, these are all numeric. The category data items are generally categorical, although they might be numbers, like cylinders. Okay, make, model, those are obviously alphanumeric values. Okay, and we'll see what origin is, we'll see what type is as we go along. Okay, so suppose you just got this new data source. One of the very first things you should do is click this button here, the Actions button to the right of the data source name. And there's so many things you can do from this button. Okay? You can join data. You can remove this data source, change it, refresh it, filter it. But what I want to do right now, first thing, is view measure details. Okay, that applies to the handful of measures that we see to the left side there, and gives us instant statistics for those measures, each one of them here. Engine size, horsepower, let's look at horsepower here. Minimum of 73, maximum of 500. We see the average. We see the sum. We probably don't care about the sum, but we got these instant statistics. For all of our measures, for invoice, we see the minimum price and the maximum invoice price and the average invoice price, and so forth through all of our measures. We also want to look down below, and we can see here that we have how many rows of data? We have 428 rows of data. Okay, so that's how many models of cars that we have here. And it's also important to note missing values of any of our measures. So invoice is selected. There are no missing values for invoice price, and that's a good thing. but we want to take note of any outliers. This all looks like good data, but we certainly don't want to see negative numbers for horsepower or invoice or length, right? We don't want to see zero values. So the first thing we want to do is just make sure that all these numbers make sense. The minimums make sense, the maximums make sense, the averages make sense. Sometimes the sum, but probably not in this case. We can also down below see a whole variety of different statistics that you may be interested in for each of your measures. Just click on a measure like weight, okay? And you can see its distribution kind of sort of like a normal bell-shaped curve type distribution. You can see the weight here is centered around, what's that, about 3,000 pounds roughly there, and it trails off on the low end, trails off on the high end, but you can kind of see its distribution for everything else. I can click on MSRP and you can see that that's kind of weighted towards the low end, and it trails off as we go to the high end vehicles. This is just frequency that shows the number of vehicles in each MSRP grouping. Okay, so it is weighted towards the lower end, the affordable vehicles. So you can do that for each one of the measures. How easy was it to get here? Just a mouse click away, and we got instant statistics. So that's one of the first things that we want to check. There's this measure details window. I'm going to close this window. And again, I got to it, just to remind you, from this button here. I just clicked, and then the last item here, view measure details, is how I got those instant statistics. We've already seen here under the category classification role, here we see to the right of each one the number of unique values. So there are 6 values of type, whatever that is, we're going to find out. 3 values of origin. Some of these are obvious, like model and make, the number of unique values of those. Okay, now it may be that there are certain data items that you're absolutely not interested in. Like, I'm not interested in wheelbase. I'm not interested in length. So I just want to hide those, get them out of my face. I don't want to be distracted by those. So I'm going to go to this button up here at the top of the data pane, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to select the last item here, show or hide data items. Whatever I'm not interested in, I just want to remove it from visibility, so I'm not distracted by it. They're all selected by default, and that's fine except for the ones I don't want to see. So that's length. Let's scoot that over here so that we hide it. And wheelbase, I'm not interested in, so let's select that, click the left arrow, and scoot that over. I don't want to see them. Okay, I'm not interested in them. They're not relevant to my analysis. So I'm going to say okay to that. Okay, and so they're gone, and I'm not distracted by them. And that wasn't a big deal here, but if you have, say, 100 data items or more, then you probably want to pick and choose what's relevant to you and what is not relevant to you, just so you can focus in on the relevant data items. Okay, what about, we talked about cylinders here, or did we? Okay, cylinders, what are those 8 unique values? Well, we're going to see what they are here. It says here numeric. Now, one of the things that I did before starting this demo is I changed it to make it a category. It was originally a measure because these are numbers here. Cylinders are numbers. It was originally a measure. Let me change that back here. You see its classification role is category, and originally it was a measure because these are numbers of cylinders in a vehicle. Let's go back to the measure details window. Okay, and let's look at the cylinders. There it is. It's the first one, minimum of 3, maximum of 12. Okay, well, that kind of makes sense. I don't know that there are many cars with 3 cylinders, but anyway, we have at least one here. Maximum of 12, that's kind of a rarity too, but average. Now, why would we be interested in averaging the number of cylinders in a group of cars? That really doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense to add them up either. Really, we want to treat cylinders like a category. So let's close this, and that's why I made that change here originally, and I'm going to change it back. So I'm going to click that down arrow there and change it. See, because it's numbers, it wound up being in the measure role, but that really would make more sense as a category, not as a measure. Okay, so now we see that there are 8 unique values. We'll see what they are, but they're just numbers between 3 and 12, but they are distinct values. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, or rather 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. There's never going to be a 3.5. So it's not really a measure. Okay, we're never going to want to average them, but we might be interested in selecting 4-cylinder cars or 6-cylinder cars or 8-cylinder cars. So that's why we want to make that a category. So you want to check the classification role of each data item and make sure it's appropriate. And in this case, I made a change. Okay? All right. Then we might also want to do a rename, like invoice. What does that mean? Invoice. Well, to clarify, I want to call this invoice price. So I can easily rename that. Just click that down arrow and change its name. Call it invoice price. You can always change the name of any data item for clarity. Okay. The classification role is measure. We're going to leave that as is. The format will include $signs and commas. We'll leave that as is. The aggregation by default is sum. Do we really want to sum up the invoice price? Probably not. Probably not. I'm going to change the aggregation to average. Okay, so you want to be careful about the aggregation of your measure data items. They will default to sum, but often you will want to change that to be average. And I'm going to do the same thing here for MSRP. I'm going to change that. Oh, and apparently I already did. So that originally was also sum, but I was playing around with this data beforehand, and I did change it to average, and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to leave that as is. I can also calculate a new data item on the fly if I need to. And I do need to. I want a new data item, profit. I want to create that here on the fly. So I'm going to go up here to the top where it says new data item, and I'm going to click there, and I want a calculated item. You can see all your choices here. So many things you can do. Hierarchy, custom category, calculated item, geography item, parameter, and so forth. I want a calculated item, and it's going to be very, very simple. It's just going to be a subtraction, okay, to calculate profit. And I'm going to name it here profit in the upper left corner. And the result type here will defaults to numeric, and I'm going to leave that alone. The format, I want to put a dollar format on that, a currency format. So I'm just going to select and change that to a dollar format there. And I'm going to knock the pennies down to 0. Okay, I don't need to see the pennies. So let's calculate that. So I'm going to go click on operators, and this is going to be numeric simple. It's just simple subtraction. So x minus y. I'm going to drag that in. You see, we have all the usual arithmetic operators here and additional operators that fall into other categories here: date and time, text, aggregations. But for now, this is going to be simple here. Just a straight subtraction. So I'm going to go to data items, and I'm going to expand numeric, and the profit is simply MSRP. So I'm going to drag that in here to be my X value, MSRP minus invoice price. So I'm going to drag that in here. Okay. And there we go. There's my calculation of profit. I'm going to preview that. So lower right corner, there's a preview button. And we can see here the profit based on the MSRP minus invoice price. So $36,000 and change minus $33,000 and change is $3,000 and change for our first car here. So that looks good, looks right. There's my expression, MSRP minus invoice price. I'm going to close the preview window. I'm going to click OK here in this new calculated item window. OK to that. And there you can see my new data item profit that I just created on the fly. And how easy was that? You can see it also has a little bit of a different icon there to indicate that it is calculated. It was not part of the original data. I can click the drop-down arrow here just to verify here its name, its format, that it's a measure. Oops, the aggregation is sum again. I want to change that to be average for later reporting purposes. And I'm going to collapse the properties window for profit. So I want to filter my data down to just cars with a certain number of cylinders. Okay, so there are 8 values of cylinders. I don't want all 8. I just want the common or the typical ones, and I want to create a data source filter that will apply to any and all report objects that I create later. So I'm going to click on the action button here, and I'm going to say that I want to create a data source filter. So I'm going to click where it says apply data filter. Okay, and I'm going to choose an operator. Either under comparison, the in operator is great. I'm going to show that to you. So easy to use. And for my string value, I want cylinders. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to select under numeric cylinders. Okay, cylinders in what? In a list. What's my list here? I'm going to click where it says none selected, and I'm going to select the ones I want. I'm interested in 4-cylinder cars, so I double-clicked on the 4, and 6-cylinder cars, I double-clicked that, and 8-cylinder cars, and that's all I want. I don't want these oddballs here, 3, 5, 10, 12, or missing values. I just want cars with 4, 6, or 8 cylinders. So that's it. See how easy the in operator is to use? It just shows you its unique values, and you pick the ones you want. And that can work for cylinders. It can work for US states or countries or departments or anything with multiple values that you want to filter. So I'm just going to say OK to that. And notice on the lower right corner, it says total observations 428, returned observations 413. So we only filtered out a very few. I think we filtered out like 15 cars with a weird number of cylinders. I don't know what they were about, but I knew I didn't want those. Okay, so I filtered my data at its source. Okay, so I'm going to say okay to that. I have now a data source filter. I could always go back and edit that or delete it just by clicking on the Actions button. I could edit or delete that data filter. I'm not going to do that. Okay. Now, the next thing is we might ask about our data. We already looked at statistics here for the measures. Okay. What about these category data items? What are these 6 types? What does that mean? What are these 3 origins? What does that mean? And to find the answers to that, it's as easy as drag and drop. And before I show you that, let me also go back and show you for cylinders. Remember, there were originally 8 unique values. Okay, well, now we only have 3 unique values of cylinders: 4-cylinder cars, 6-cylinder cars, 8-cylinder cars. We just have the 3, and we got rid of those weird ones, including the missing values. Okay, so let's come back here. And what are these 6 types? Well, let's just drag that in. And let's auto chart it. Let go of my mouse button, and there's the 6 types and the frequency of each. So we got a bar chart here instantly. How easy was that? So you can see here the type: sports, SUV, sedan, truck, wagon, and hybrid. And you can see the profit of each, okay? The average profit on each one, okay? Now, remember, profit was something that I calculated earlier, okay? And that is the measure that's appearing here. We can change that if we want, okay? We can go over to the right side and go over to the roles. There, see, the measure is profit. We could change that. We could remove profit, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove profit, and now my bar chart disappears. It says assign data, so this is just a generic bar chart. The category is type, but we got to have a measure. And that's what that red asterisk means. It means that the measure is required. But I don't want it to be profit. What I want it to be is MSRP. So I'm going to click to add, and I'm going to select MSRP and OK to that. And now the length of the bars represents the MSRP for each type of vehicle. Sports vehicles are the most expensive. Average MSRP, you can see here, $52,000, followed by SUV, sedan, wagon, truck, and hybrid. Okay, so that's a different way of looking at the data, or we could change it again. Maybe you're not interested in MSRP. Maybe you just want to know how many cars of each type. Fine, select MSRP and change that to frequency. Frequency is always available as a choice. Now it's a completely different picture, completely different story. And we see we've got 254 sedans for sale, followed by 59 SUVs, and so forth. So how easy was all of that? Just drag in what you want, just drop it down, and change the measure if you like, change the category. There's lots of other roles that we can play with, but I'll leave that for another presentation. I want to keep this under an hour. Okay, now, what if we wanted to, instead of a bar chart, we wanted this to be a crosstab, and we wanted to also see what the different origins are, what the different types of cars are. Fine, we can do that, or the different makes or models. We can just right-click here and scroll down to the bottom, change bar chart to, and there's a whole long list of possibilities here. I'm going to pick the first one at the top there, crosstab. Okay, so there's my types now in tabular form and the number of each, the frequency of each off to the right. Okay, maybe I want to see, well, what are these origins? What does that mean, origin? Fine, I could add that to the column row. You see that for this crosstab, the type forms the rows. We got a row for each type. And if I want columns, I could say, all right, I want a column for each origin, and I can see what the origins are. Okay to that. And there we go. So how many of each type of car is made in Asia, Europe, and USA? And we get the numbers in there. Maybe I also want totals. Fine. Go to options here, and I can get totals. Let's see, if I go down here, there's a checkbox for totals and subtotals. And I'm going to check the totals, and I want the totals to be after the detailed data. So now I got a total column here and a total row here. Okay. And how easy was all that? Just a few mouse clicks away to do that. I could pretty this up. I could change formats and fonts and background colors everywhere. I'm going to save that for a different presentation. Okay, and I'm not going to worry about appearance. We could spend all day talking about appearance, but just trust me, you can do that. That's all under this style options, where we could style up the background, the border, the padding, and more. Okay. So I created a filter, a data source filter, right? So we're not looking at all of our cars. I filtered out the ones that had an odd number of cylinders. But what I want to do now is to create a dynamic filter. Okay, so I've got this crosstab here with the origin across the top, and I'm actually going to just remove that. And I'm going to approach this in a different way. So I'm going to remove the origin there. Okay, okay. And instead, I'm going to go and add make here. Yeah, let's add make. Let's go over to the roles here. And let's take here the type and drag that into the columns role. And for the rows, so now we have hybrid sedan, sports SUV, and so forth across the top here. So we got a column for each one. And for the rows, I want that to be make. So I'm going to click there to add, and I'm going to select make. I could select model. I'm going to select make and okay to that. And now I've got a row for each make and a column for each type. Okay, showing the frequency. And again, if I don't like the frequency, see, that's the measure, I could put in average MSRP or frequency and MSRP or whatever I wanted, miles per gallon. I could have a single measure, multiple measures. I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. You can see the total row at the bottom and the total column here at the top right side. Okay, but remember before I had origin, I had broken this down by origin. I still want to do that, but I want to do it in a different way. Okay, because I've already got rows and columns. And I could nest, I could add origin here off to the left side. I could group the makes into their different origins. Okay, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it in a more fun and dynamic way. I'm going to go up here to the triple dot on page 1. That's an options button. And by the way, I'm going to rename this page. Its name by default is page 1. And I'm going to rename this and call it crosstab. So if I just double click on page 1, let's call this crosstab, because later I'm going to make some other things. Okay. And I'm going to go to the options button for my crosstab page. And I'm going to say here, oh, I already did it. I already did it before I started this video. So what I have here at the top is, see what it says here? Drop a data item or control to create a page prompt. Okay, well, by default, that would be collapsed. So let's collapse that. Now you don't see that anymore, but let's go back to my options button and I can say expand page controls. That's a special area there. Drop a data item or control to create a page prompt to filter this page. I want to filter this page by origin. Okay, and I want to make this a dynamic filter under user control, under the control of my audience or my viewer that views this report. So I'm going to take origin and I'm going to drag it up here. It says auto control. I'm going to let go and I get a button bar. And how easy was that? And now I can pick Asia. And now I'm just looking at the makes from Asia. Or I can pick Europe. And there's the makes from Europe. And I can click USA. And there's the makes from USA. How easy was that to get a button bar? I can unselect USA if I want to look at all the makes. I could do that as well. Now nothing is selected and I see all makes from all locations. Okay, so we're making this a more dynamic report that way. And let's that's fine. That crosstab is fine, but I want to make another page here. So I'm going to click on the plus sign here. And I got a new page. It's page 2, and I'm going to rename it from page 2. I'm going to call this pie chart. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to make a pie chart. Okay. And what are all the different objects that I can make? The different report objects. I can see all of them if I go to the left side and click where it says objects. And look at all these objects. There's dozens of them and they're grouped. There's tables like crosstab or list table. There's a huge number of graphs, bar chart, okay, and skipping through a lot of these, butterfly chart, line charts, needle plot. There it is, the ever popular pie chart. But let's keep going. Let's look at what else there is. There are so many: scatter plot, schedule chart, time series plot, on and on. Word cloud, yeah, we'll look at the word cloud. There's all kinds of maps that you can create. There are many kinds of controls, and we'll look at a few of those. Besides the button bar, there's sliders and drop-down lists. There's analytic objects. There are just so many things you can create: images, backgrounds, text objects, statistical. We could spend days looking at all this, but I just want to give you a quick introduction here. So I want a pie chart. Fine, I want a pie chart on my pie chart page. Just grab the pie chart, drag it in, drop it on the page, and there it is. Now, it's just generic by default because I need to assign its roles, and it defaulted to a sister of the pie chart, which is a donut chart, but we can change that. Okay, we can change it here if we go over to its options, and I'm going to do that. But first, let's set its roles here. So I'm going to go here to category. That's a required role. And I'm going to say make here for my pie chart. And then there are 413 different unique values of make here. And most of them go into this other category, but you can see here the legend, a few of the bigger ones here, Toyota, Chevrolet. I can also hover my mouse over any slice of the pie. Actually, this is a donut, right? This is a donut, not really a pie, but let's go over, change it to a traditional pie chart, go over to the options button here. And you can see it defaulted to a donut style, but I can change it to be a traditional pie chart. And there we go, traditional pie chart. Now, with most everything falling into the other category, a minimum of 4% for the other category, I could remove that, the other, and here I get all of them. There's a lot. There's a lot there, but that's very colorful. But let's create an option here to kind of filter this down, sort of the way we did for the crosstab, except instead of a button bar, I want a drop-down list. Okay, so let's go back to the objects, and under controls, let's take the drop-down list. Oh, I need to expose that special area there. So I'm going to go here to the triple dots for the pie page, and I'm going to say expand page control. And there it is. There's the page control area. And I'm going to take the drop-down list and drag it there. I can do it that way, or let's approach it a different way. Let's approach it a different way. I want to filter this by type. So let's go back to data. Remember our 6 types? And let's take type and drag it there, and we'll get an auto control. Maybe it'll be a drop-down list. Let's see what it is. It's a drop-down list. We could change it if we wanted a button bar. We could change it to be a button bar, but I like the drop-down list here. So now I can select from it. What if I select sports? Okay, well, there's the make of sports cars, and there's a lot of makes of sports cars. Or I could select here wagon. Who makes a wagon? We can see the manufacturers that make a wagon. Or what about hybrid? Only 2, only Honda and Toyota make a hybrid. This is old data, right? So that's why we only see 2 here. But again, how easy is that? And by the way, if you want Honda and Toyota to appear inside the pie chart, let's pick another one here. Let's pick truck. Okay, and we want the makes inside. There's options for that. There's options for everything here. So for the pie chart, we can select its options. Let's select some of these check boxes. Category labels there. Now it says the categories inside the pie slices. We could bold that up. We could remove the legend, right? The legend's on. Now we don't need the legend anymore. We could turn it off or reposition it. I could put the number of different trucks. See, Chevy has 5 trucks, GMC 4, Toyota has 3, and so forth. Okay, I could put the percentage in there. Look how easy all of this is to do. And again, I can go back and I can select this time SUV. Boy, there's a lot of them. A lot of manufacturers make SUVs, so that's getting a little crowded. Maybe we want a legend for that. I could also clear the filter, and then we have all vehicles, and then it's even more crowded. Okay, so we probably want to make a selection here, and we'll go with sedan. There's a lot. Let's go to sports. So a lot of manufacturers make sports, and again, we could change this to be MSRP or anything else we wanted it to be. Any measures we want. We've got for our measure, we've just got the frequency. Okay. But we could change that to be any different measure we wanted from the roles tab. Okay, and I probably went kind of overboard here. Let's remove some of those check marks here, but you can see the choice is yours, how you want this to appear. Okay, that's not bad. All right, so for my third and final report object, I want to make a word cloud of all these different makes of cars, and I want to put that on a third page. So I'm going to click the plus sign there, and I get a page 3, and I'm going to name this my word cloud page. Okay. So let's go over to objects, and there's the word cloud. Let's drag that in, but it's just generic because I don't have a role yet. So let's go to the roles tab on the right side, and for the word role, let's choose make. And there we go. And so the size of the words is controlled by the frequency. How many different models? So Mercedes-Benz has a lot of different models for sale. Okay. And Jeep has fewer models, and Scion has fewer models, and so forth. We could change that. Doesn't have to be frequency. We could change it to be anything we want. I could change it to be MSRP. And Mercedes-Benz is still one of the bigger ones. It's Porsche is bigger. Chevrolet and Honda are smaller. Okay, Kia is smaller still. Scion is smaller. Okay, so that's average MSRP in our word cloud. Let's create an ability to filter this data by MSRP. So again, I'm going to go to the triple dots here on the word cloud tab. And again, I'm going to say expand page controls. And this time I'm going to, I want a slider. See, I could just drag the slider up there, but I'm going to approach it differently. I'm going to go to my data, and I'm going to find MSRP. And here it is. And I'm going to drag that in, and that's going to be an auto control. And I think it will be a slider because it's numeric. And yes, it is a slider. It's a little slider here. I want it to be bigger. So let's go over to its options here. And let's see. Yeah, under layout, extend width if available. Yeah, I want a nice big long slider. Good, good. And you can see there's lots of options here. I could set minimum and maximum values. I can control its style, its appearance. Let's see here, the font. What if I want to change the font to Arial font and make it bigger here? How about 16-point font? There, that's nice. I could change the color on the slider. I'll just leave it at black. I'm okay with that. And let's go back to the roles here for the word cloud. So we see the size of the words represents MSRP. You can see the legend at the bottom from 13,000 some to 83,000 some. I could have a color roll here if I wanted, and I can base the color on something else like frequency. Okay, so from light blue here to dark blue, depending on the frequency, from like 1 to 28. So a very dark blue, like for Mercedes, means that they've got a lot of models. Mercedes-Benz has 24 different car models, and Scion only has 2 car models. Okay, so many options. You can make this appear any way you want. Now, how about that slider here, that MSRP slider? Let's drag it here. So we got the full range from 10,000 to 192,000, and I could drag this over. I could just look at the high-end cars. What do we have? Oh, just Porsche here, beginning at 137,000. Well, I overshot. Let's drag it back. Now we have a few of the high-end cars here. We can include more mid-price cars in the group, or we could exclude the high-price cars now with our slider. Okay, and drag that down to just whatever. Now we're looking at the lower end cars. Right there, the affordable cars now. Okay, up between 10 and 21,000. And how easy was all of this to create a very dynamic, very colorful report in about an hour. And obviously there's more we could do. We could go on all day, but I just wanted to showcase the intuitive interface, the drag and drop capability. You can do so much, so fast with any data. And then when you're done, you click the save button, or anytime, click the save button in the upper right corner. Okay, well, thank you for watching this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. And you got to practice it. You got to get in, use it or lose it. So good luck with SAS Visual Analytics.